What's in a question? Maybe just about everything important. A smart and sharp question should strike up the most engaging of conversations. So let's have ourselves a little discussion here with Diane, who's joining us in the studio. And today we'll be talking about a little bit more of a Korean-centric topic.
Right.
And also pertaining specifically to the F&B or food and beverage companies that are refusing to get into the major department stores.
Right. So happy hump day.
Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Good morning.
Right. You woke up really early today, right?
Yeah.
Well, every day.
Every day. But let's give out the question to our listeners one more time.
Right. So question, why are stores running away from the idea of opening up another branch at a department store? Are we heading towards the retail apocalypse? First of all, frankly, I've exaggerated the question of the day a bit to grab everybody's attention. Retail apocalypse. I just want to emphasize how the so-called myth of the department stores and its successful stories and whether the burst of the bubble is leading to the path of the retail apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, from personal experience, I think the retail apocalypse is not being felt by the department stores here in Korea.
Right. Yeah. So it's been happening around the world since the pandemic, especially in the U.S. A lot of big retailers in the United States have closed down their stores, but it's a little bit different in South Korea, where the department stores have thrived during the pandemic. So it's a little bit different story. But then when it comes to food and beverage business, a lot of people are refusing to get into the department stores to open up another branch. So department stores might have problem of getting those F&B businesses into their stores.
Right. And just to give a little bit more of a background and using the United States as an example,
Right.
when we're thinking about big department stores in the United States, you know, you have brands like Macy's,
Neiman Marcus, right.
J.C. Penney's, Neiman Marcus. And those kind of stores have they have their individual huge box storefronts. They connect to form a big quote-unquote shopping mall
Right.
in the United States. But department stores and malls in Korea are a little bit different in the sense that those big brands, whether it be the big luxury brands or the semi-luxury brands or even the casual brands,
Right.
are all housed under one roof.
Yes.
So when we are talking about the major department stores here in Korea, like, you know, the Hyundais, the Shinsegaes, the Lottes, the big conglomerate-owned department stores, they tend to thrive because if you want luxury goods, you have to go to one of their department stores
Right.
that are housing those luxury
Yes.
brand stores.
Right. And if you want to get the all-in experience in one place, that's the place you want to go, right? Starting from food to shopping, you can get everything there.
Yeah, and during the pandemic, this was a global trend. Consumption of luxury brands increased
Yes.
globally.
Right.
And Surprisingly, but maybe not, because of the liquidity was there. There's a lot of money
Yeah,
being
that's true.
printed. But because of the way that the department stores are structured here in Korea, that's also one of the big reasons why sales actually increased during the pandemic after
Right.
the initial wave of COVID kind of subsided.
And then there used to be the so-called the myth of department stores in South Korea, because we used to believe, or food and beverage companies and clothing companies believe, that getting into large retail department stores would mean that such companies have been successfully made their way to becoming the next hot item. When Hyundai department store Pangyo branch opened, it was a huge success with people lining up to get into the store. I think this was probably the first time we've witnessed an open run at the department stores, people lining up in front of the door for the stores to open and then running fast to get what they want. I still remember when I first visited the Pangyo department store, trying to get a cupcake from the famous place from New York.
Yeah. And that's, I think, partially a marketing ploy by the department stores. They like to get these big brands from the U.S. or from Europe and say that, hey, we have an exclusive contract with them, or we were able to bring them in into our department
Right.
stores. So to get that experience from New York or to get that experience from LA or London or Paris, you have to come to this department store to get it.
And the sales showed, right? The first cupcake store that opened in August 2015 drew attention as it broke the monthly sales of 600 million won from a single dessert store for the first time in the industry in just 1 month. And seeing that success, the stores expanded by opening more stores and other branches. And that led to the myth of successful department stores.
Yeah, but there's downsides also to the department stores. Obviously, there's a very high rent.
Right.
And usually rent structures in department stores are sales-based.
So commissions.
They take a big chunk of the profits.
Right.
So they're sales-based percentages.
Right.
And also there are operating difficulties because a lot of the times you have to share spaces. They always fight over storage space.
Right.
And if you're an F&B, prep space and fridge space.
Yeah.
So those also become an issue. And then another tangential issue could be workers, employees. Some people prefer not to work in the department stores just because it's a more uncomfortable setting.
Yeah.
It's more crowded.
Right. It's closed space.
Most of the F&B spaces are usually in the basement, B1 or B2 level,
Right.
so they're not windows, you can't see outside. And it's also very highly trafficked areas.
Yes.
So a lot of the
A lot of
stores
people.
tend to be busier. So you don't get to have the pace of work that you would get at a road shop, for example, where
Right.
you're busy for maybe a 2-hour window at lunchtime, and then you could kind of take it easy a little bit, and then another 2-3 hour dinner time rush.
Yeah.
But in a department store, it's kind of all day ongoing.
Right. I mean, I think that's the reason why all day ongoing, the reason why that F&B stores believe that it was a huge success when they go into the department stores. So right after the Pangyo witnessed success, the Hyundai department opened another branch in Yeouido, and that particular department store reached sales of 2 billion won thanks to F&B businesses on the first day of pre-opening. And this was remarkable because the department store in Yeouido didn't even have the so-called 3 major luxurious brands such as Hermes, Louis Vuitton, and Chanel. And their sales result was actually 30% higher than their original target. So thanks to F&B, they earned a lot of money during the pre-opening days. Coffee and dessert enthusiasts crowded the food hall on the first basement floor as the floor was filled with a large number of famous cafes and dessert shops scattered across Seoul, gathered in one place. Long lines lined up for 3 days at some stores, just as the Pangyo branch did. And the stores included a lot of famous places and a lot of so-called hot places around the Seoul, including a famous British scone restaurant or Yangyang store, sweetened and jellied bean paste, and a French-style bread shop or long-established and long-loved bakeries have opened its stores there. And the idea of all those beloved and the hottest stores being in one place drew people's attention.
Yeah. And usually there's a big flash in the pan effect. Right when it opens, a lot of people, it grabs a lot of attention because it's a one-stop destination where you could get a variety of famous eateries.
Right.
But the trend is changing because business owners think that while they were drawn by the aura of this huge boom and this flash in the pan effect, that over a longer period of time, it settles out.
Right.
And the sales die out. And sometimes the original contract negotiations, the percentage, they start to eat away a little too much into the profit, where the department stores end up making money, but you as the operator, as the secondary brand that goes into the department stores, end up just
losing.
breaking even,
Right.
or most of the time losing money.
Even losing, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. As time goes by, the business owners have realized that at first it's really good when they're rolling at the first time, but then over time, as you mentioned, they just break it even or earn even less than before. So the atmosphere or like the scene of F&B business is changing. It seems like the hottest brands in F&B sector are unwilling to open a small branch in department stores. For example, let's take a look at one of the hottest donut places in Seoul with a cute bear character. Even with delivery service open for that donut place, people still waited in line to get a half a dozen donuts. And of course, the four main department stores in South Korea, Shinsegae, Lotte, Galleria, and Hyundai, continuously ask them for opening a pop-up store, but they always turn them down, saying getting into department stores would harm their original brand image. But to their surprise, they changed their strategy and opened a pop-up stores at Lotte department stores just a while ago.
Yeah. If you're in the F&B sector, you have to think about consumer perception.
Right.
So
or psychology.
Yeah. So being in the department store can be a good thing. Like, oh man, they made it.
Right.
They made it. They're
Yeah.
famous enough to come into the department
It gives
store.
that sentiment.
But then there's the flip side. Let's say business doesn't do so well, and within a year or two, they have to
Pull out.
pull out of the department store. Then they become like, oh, they're not the hot thing anymore.
Right. They have died down.
They're not the trendsetter
Right.
anymore. Nobody really likes them anymore. But another tricky thing about the Korean market is it's very, very trendy.
Right. It's very trendy.
Very trendy. And F&B trends only last maximum 2 years.
Right.
So, we've gone through it all. We've gone to the honeycomb ice cream, to the Taiwanese kasterapang,
Right. Custard bread.
to churros, to, we had a big Mexican boom. We had a big pizza boom.
Yeah.
We had a
Burger
big
boom.
burger boom.
Yes.
We had a big donut boom.
Yeah.
And so it all changes
constantly.
And it's at max 2 years.
Right.
So that's the most difficult thing about F&B and operating F&B here in Korea.
Right. So that's why industry insiders see this donut place changing strategy as the fall of the brand. The food and service industry insiders who saw their change strategy gave an evaluation that, that donut brand is over. A food and beverage buyer at a department store said dessert brands do not have a particularly long lifespan because trends change so quickly, as you said. So their change strategy would mean that the brand's lifespan is almost at the end. So that's the trend these days in food service industry, like the donut brand's case. The perspective on entering department stores is changing recently. In the past, entering a department store was a symbol of success for self-employed restaurant business owners. Rather, it's been said that only companies that have reached their peak and are on a downward trend are desperate enough to get into those department stores. That's the general trend or sentiment.
There's a little bit more of a nuance to that, I think. It depends on how you want to position your brand as well. So as a brand operator, do you want to be a unique individual, you want to kind of limit the access and be exclusive, then you want to stay away from the department stores. If you want to start a franchise model, if you want to expand as quickly as possible and you want to get to as many stores as possible, then that's a department store model, possibly. But not all department store locations are all created equal.
That's true.
So even within the three major, the Galleria, Shinsegae, Lotte department stores, they have multiple branches spread across Seoul and all across Korea. They have top branches.
The major.
And the middling branches and the lower tier branches. So just because you go into a department store doesn't mean that you're going to have huge success. You also have to target the best of the best of those brands and branches. So a lot of people kind of have, like you said, the myth, right? So they think, I'm in a department store, I'm going to do well. It's not. You have to be in a department store, but you have to be in the top branch of those department stores.
I think that's the problem I'm concerned for the F&B business owners because you want that exclusivity experience for the Gen Zers because they thrive on that exclusivity, but then they can only give you a certain amount of sales for the business. So you want to expand, but then ironically, expanding is not really good for the business.
Yeah, depending on, but
Right, yeah.
one
depending on the brand.
of the most difficult parts of it also is you don't have much room for negotiation
Yeah.
when you're going into the department store. Because like you said here, it's a 갑을 relationship.
Right, the top down.
Yeah. And so that hinders them. And then you have all the tangential side effects
Right.
that we discussed. Both the positives and the negatives, but you have to, as a business owner, kind of determine what kind of trajectory you want to place your business in.
Yes, right.
Okay, well, Diane, thank you so much for an interesting topic today. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow.